Yes, good evening. This is Kushal here this side. Is my voice audible?
Yes, it is. Hi.
Yeah, your good name, please.
My name is Astha.
Yes, Asta. So let me just share my screen. All right. Is the screen visible?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So before beginning, I would just like to know, what is your background, educational background, and are you still taking your education or working somewhere? How's it?
Okay, so I passed out in 2015 with BBA and I
Okay.
specialized in finance. And after working in sales and marketing, I have applied for master's programs in business analytics. So one of my prerequisite for the course is that I have to learn R programming and SPSS.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I do not
okay.
have, and I don't have any background of the same.
Okay. Fine. Okay. Yeah, that's good enough to to know about you. So I'm Kushal, and I have been training for last 7+ years. I have been into trainings, and my domain is data science, business analytics, big data. This is my domain. So
Okay.
about programming. So before beginning with the R, basically, I would just like to give you an idea of programming languages. Okay, I think that is something we should start with, and then basically, yes, I'll give you an intro to R as well.
Okay.
Okay, so by programming, what comes to your mind on, or what is your current understanding that what is programming, or before that we can have what is a program basically. So what do you understand by the term program?
It's something to do with coding with computers mostly and softwares basically which is needed.
Okay.
You need a software to run the program basically.
Okay, fine. Okay, right. So yes, this is fine. Yeah, at high level, this is good. Code with computer and software to run. A program is in if we want to make an analogy, we can say that it's a recipe.
Okay.
So if we want to make a cup of tea, so we will have to basically follow a certain steps. So those steps written together, they will become a program.
Correct.
Yeah. So we should say that step by step execution. So that is something is a program, and the only difference here is that this step by step, rather execution, I should say, instructions. So these step by step instructions are meant for computer in this case.
Okay.
Yeah. So recipe is meant for a human being, and here the step by step instructions are meant for a computer or a machine, and that is basically called as program. Another terminology is there, process.
Okay.
We see that, for example, if I open up a task manager and if I see that there will be a lot of processes running, services running. So processes are basically programmed in execution state.
Okay.
So this means that if somebody is preparing a cup of tea at this particular moment, so we will say the process is being done. Okay, so it is in process. This is how we say. So a process is the program which is in execution state. It is being executed. That is called as a process. Okay. So this is very fundamental term, because every time when we basically start doing something, so we say write a program. So that terminology should be clear. Okay.
Correct.
Then after that, now let's come to programming languages.
Okay.
So in programming languages, just tell me, like, how many have you heard of? Like, which programming languages you have heard of?
Okay, I know C.
Okay.
C++.
Right.
Then there's Java.
Correct.
Then there's Python.
Right.
I don't know. Is SQL a programming language?
Yeah, SQL is also a programming language. A little bit different from the other ones, but it is also.
Okay.
This much is good.
Yeah.
And R, something which we are going to discuss. Yeah.
Correct.
So, assume that this is a machine, this is a computer, and
okay.
Basically the purpose of a programming language is to interact with computers or machines. That is the primary purpose.
Correct.
Now we know that computers, they understand only 0 and 1. Okay, so this is something we know, that this is called as binary.
Correct.
But for human beings, it is very complex. Binary is very complex. Like, we cannot memorize. We may have to maintain a lot of different records in order to write a program using only 0 and 1. So it's very complex thing. So therefore, in order to basically make it easy for human beings, we want some higher level or easier way than binary. That is something we want.
Okay.
So for
that, us to understand. That's correct, right?
Yes,
for
correct.
Us to understand? Okay.
Yes. So for both the things, for us to understand, as well as if we want to give instructions to the computer, and we have to write, we have only privilege to write the code in 0 and 1, it will become very difficult.
Okay.
Yeah. So therefore, we actually want, we call it as, this is very low level language. Low basically means which is very easy for computers but very difficult for human beings. So easy for computer means low level. Now easy for human beings, that will be called as high level language.
Okay.
So after binary, then we have assembly level language. Assembly level is also low level. It is not again high level, it is low level, but here, yes, it is also low level, but here we have something which is called as, in simple terms, I'll call them as keywords. We have keywords.
Okay.
Keywords, they are actually called as mnemonics. Keywords are actually called as
mnemonics.
Yes, MSL, mnemonics. So keywords are add. So add, so looking at the add, it is easy to understand. Yes, we are going to perform addition. Similar way, sums, MUL, multiply. Yeah.
Okay.
So these kind of keywords got evolved. So instead of writing, for example, add in binary, maybe I don't know what is in binary. Add, addition maybe 0 1 0 0 0 1 1 1 something, some particular piece of a list of letters would be there. That will actually mean add in binary. So that is very complex to remember, too difficult. So add is simple. So in assembly level, these kind of keywords came into picture existence. Still, the binary and assembly both are low level only, because even along with add, we have to use lot of numerical data, and very like you can say flexibility is very less, the way we have in other programming languages, like here we have mentioned C, C++. So this is also low level.
Okay.
Moving ahead, then from assembly also, now the approach was the language should be similar to English. That was the all attempt or approach which was basically worked upon. So here we have some middle level language and followed by high level.
Okay.
So the difference between middle level and high level is, the middle level language, they if we talk about the CPU, the machine, and the memory inside it. Okay, so the memory inside it in middle level language, it directly accesses the memory, and it is still basically at hardware level. It is more nearer to hardware level. Binary is completely hardware level, because computer is nothing but hardware, and software Yeah. And software is a mechanism by which we, as a user, as human beings, we can interact with the hardware. So languages or softwares are basically an interface using which we interact with the machine. So that is the purpose of the languages and softwares. So middle level language is still very much nearer to hardware. It directly accesses and manages the memory. So therefore they are called as middle level languages. But after that, we have languages which basically are very much like in English or some mathematical expressions. They are called as high level languages. So now in middle level and high level, if we see, the C language, C programming comes under middle level language. C++ still is middle level language, but Java, Python, R, all these are basically high level languages. They are very much having a syntax which is very much near to English, and it is easy for human beings to understand and write the code, but it is difficult for the machine to understand that code, and therefore we have a concept called as compiler and interpreter, which are required to convert these pieces of code into machine understandable format. So we have compilers and we have interpreters. So interpreter is something which basically converts one line after the other, another line. Okay, that is the purpose of interpreter. Compiler is something which converts the whole code at a time and produces a machine readable format of code. So here basically we will get, simply we can call it as machine code.
Machine code, okay.
This is common for all programming languages, which basically are from middle level to high level programming languages. They will have compiler or interpreter, either of them, or some programming languages may have both of them. They can support compiler type and they can support interpreter type also. So this is something which is very common and fundamental to all programming languages, that whatever we write is called as source code. So whatever we write, so at this level we will call it as source code.
Okay.
And then your compiler or interpreter will convert it into machine code, machine readable code. There could be certain more things. For example, we can have some more elements after compiler. It depends. Like Java has got one more stage before it goes to machine. It basically creates a Java bytecode. So it creates a bytecode, and that bytecode can be used in any of the machines where Java is installed. But in case of C, it directly converts it into machine code. So that code will run on that particular machine. It may not run in another machine. So therefore, like Java is some advanced version of language, better as compared to C and C++.
Okay. So these source codes can either be converted into compilers or interpreters. That's correct, right?
This is not correct understanding. Compilers and interpreters are translators. They are translators.
Okay.
Now basically, let's say the source code is let's say this is language English, and our machine understands French.
Okay.
So what will happen? We require some interpreter or translator who can understand our English and translate it into French and tell it to the person and listen to that person back again and tell it to us in English. So this is the role of compiler and interpreter. They listen to our code and they convert it into machine code. Machine then basically follows the instructions. After that, machine produces a result. These compiler interpreter, they show us in the form of the way we can read them out, the way we can understand. Because so machine will always give output in zeros and ones only. So we actually need to again interpret it into our English language. So that is something these compilers and interpreter do.
Okay. Now I understood.
Yes. Okay. Now there are different types of programming languages.
Yeah.
Okay. So we call it as types, or we can call it as paradigms. So different paradigms
Okay.
are there, and major paradigms we have are procedural, then we have object oriented, then we have logical, and we have functional. Okay.
Okay.
So now, okay. Yes. So procedural programming languages. I told you about recipe.
Correct.
So recipe is something where we have certain steps, and these steps are basically ordered. We have to follow them in the same sequence. It cannot happen that I will follow first step and then 10th, then 5th, then 6th. I'll never be able to finish that particular task. It'll all be messed up. So procedural paradigm or procedural type of programming languages, they have a set of instructions which needs to be followed in a particular order in order to achieve whatever objective we have written that particular piece of code. So if you want to achieve that objective, then that particular procedure has to be followed step by step.
Okay.
So C programming is an example here. C programming is example of procedural.
Okay.
Then moving towards object oriented, the problem with procedural programming was, let's say I want, again the same example I'll take, a cup of tea we want to make, and now I want to represent the cup in programming. I want to represent milk in programming, sugar in programming, the burner, the stove, or the bowl in programming. That was not possible in procedural. And
Okay.
further moving, these objects, they have some kind of relation between them. For example, a cup can contain milk, so we can pour in the milk into a cup and we can pour out. So there is a relation between cup and milk. Similar way, we can put the burner on and put it off. So again, putting on and putting off is a function of a burner. So
Correct.
whatever real-time entity we see, they have I'll categorize two properties. One is the appearance, the physical attributes, and second is the functionality. Let's say if there's a bottle, so we can have the size of the bottle, the height of the bottle, volume of the bottle. These are the physical attributes. But the functionality is, we can open the bottle, we can close the cap of the bottle, we can fill in the bottle, we can empty the bottle. So these are the functions related with the bottle. So any object you think of, you see around, each object has got physical attributes as well as some functionality. So
Okay.
this is something which became possible with the help of object oriented programming languages. So therefore the name is object oriented, real world objects, entities.
Real. Okay.
Yes. So here I should say the physical attributes and behaviors or functions. So it was possible to basically depict functions as well as physical attributes, and C++ is an example, Java is an example, and
Correct.
C# is another, like used in .NET, that is another example of object oriented.
Okay.
Then another type, one more type, is logical programming. This is let's say you visit a hospital, and there you see that instead of doctor asking you questions, there is a system, and in that particular system there are a set of questions which are being asked, and you just need to answer yes, no, or basically fill in some values from 1 to something, or fill in some number of days. So these kind of questions are being asked, and once you fill in that detail and submit it, the doctor automatically gets a kind of rough idea that what kind of, maybe if you're not feeling well, then what kind of illness or sickness you have. Okay, So how did that particular system do this? With the help of a logical programming language, where a set of questions are there, and at the backend we have written a program setting up the logic that if the answer would be this, then the result should be XYZ.
This.
Yes. So that
Okay.
way. So here basically Prolog is a programming language which is very popular for writing logical programs. So we can say here this is question answer based programming. Okay. Moving further is functional programming language. Functional programming language is like mathematics. It works on expressions.
Expression. Okay.
Yes. So I should say mathematical expressions. So in maths, we see that like some formulas are there, and x is equal to 2x plus y. So those kind of expressions we create in functional programming language. Another important property is they are very shorthand. That means you don't need to write very lengthy programs in case of functional programming languages.
Okay.
Like in C programming, C++, Java, you will have to really write a very big program. Even if you want to perform a sum operation of 2 digits, you will have to write at least 10 to 12 extra lines apart from performing that sum. But in case of functional programming, you just need to pass those two numbers and you just need to mention a plus symbol and it will do it. So a single expression will calculate, but in other programming languages, you'll have to write a lot of code.
Is it the same for logical programming as well? Like, do we write lengthy codes for the same?
In Prolog, again, Prolog is shorthand. We don't have to write very lengthy programs in case of Prolog as well.
Okay.
So the examples here in this case are your R programming, Python programming, Scala is one programming language. These are the examples of functional programming languages.
Okay.
Now, apart from these, there are certain other paradigms as well, but these are quite popular, which are normally being used. Now, one more thing here to understand is that it is not compulsory that if our programming belongs to functional type or functional paradigm, it cannot behave like logical or it cannot behave like object oriented. It doesn't mean so. One programming language can have more than one behaviors, more than one. Right. So all of these are Python and Scala. They are also object oriented. So they are object oriented as well.
Okay. And they are logical as well. That's what you're saying, right?
Exactly. So logical is something, any programming language you can develop that kind of basically program which will be of type logical. But they are categorized mostly, like C programming is mostly categorized as procedural, because that is the primary objective of C programming, which we have, for which it was developed initially. And C++, Java and C#, they were primarily developed keeping in mind object-oriented approach. And after that, if we see, R programming was primarily developed for mathematics and statistics. So the primary domain is functional programming. And Python was multi-purpose. Python is multi-purpose. It was multi-purpose. So it is used in web development also. It is used in analysis also. Everywhere it is being used, Python. And Scala is very Scala is very recent language. It is developed out of Java only. And again, the objective was that Java is too lengthy, so let us make it short. And therefore, this Scala language was developed with the with the invention of big data tools. So this was also one of the programming language created that time.
Okay.
Right. So this is a high level idea of different programming languages and types. So we are basically discussing about R programming, and we are more focused on functional aspect of R programming, because functional aspect is majorly used in analytics part. So as you explained that analytics is a major you are taking in your masters.
Correct.
So functional is the basically part, because where all the algorithms and all the models of analytics, machine learning, those things will get created.
Correct.
So yeah, I'll have to conclude here because I planned for half an hour. I have one more session after, like, at 7:15. So I'll just try to
Okay.
give you. Okay, instead of going through the slides, I'll just
Yeah.
tell you how we basically use R Studio, and that is something which basically mostly being used software, R Studio. So this R Studio software is available for free. It also has got a paid version for organizations, but for us basically to use and practice, the free version is more than sufficient. We don't require any paid versions for practice purpose. Whatever programming we want to do, that is very much possible in this free version. Whatever analysis you will be doing in your like further studies, that is very much possible in the free version of RStudio. So this is
Okay.
Yes. So this is desktop version, and we also have a version which runs on browser. So that is called a server. So that way also it runs, and this way. So these are just the two types of the same software, but our purpose can be solved with either of them. Did you ever install our package or RStudio in your laptop? Did you explore or tried that?
No, actually, I watched tutorials on YouTube, like how the program actually looks like. I haven't had a chance to download it yet.
Okay, fine. So yes, I can help you with that. Not today, but so I'll just show you that how easy it is. Okay, so as I told that we can just use it like a calculator. 1 + 2 I have written, and I'm just running that piece of code, and below you can see I'm getting the output 3. So yes, but in any other programming language you will have to write at least 7 to 10 lines of code if you want to run 1 + 2, if you want to calculate. So this is the, you can say, an ease we get from functional programming languages like R or Python or any other functional programming language. So this is RStudio. It has got 4 sections you can see, which we'll explore. This first section is a file, like a text file. We can say, we can make an analogy. This is like a file, and below you can see that is the execution area.
Actually, hold on. I cannot see. I can see your slide right now. I can't see that.
Okay, just Is it visible now?
Yeah. Now it's visible. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So here 4 sections are there. This particular first section where I have written 1 + 2, this is like a text file. So we can have multiple files created for different pieces of codes we are writing, and then once we execute this, if I run this, then output I get below. Here I get the output. So this is execution area below. So 1 + 2, it gave output as 3. And then on the right hand side on top, whatever I will create here, like in mathematics we can create, for example, if I create I take a variable name as let's say amount, amount, and I write amount is equal to 10. So if I run it, then here we can see that amount on the right hand side, amount and 10 is basically entered. It is basically registered or stored, you can say. So so this is the area where we will see that whatever we are creating here, we call them as variables. They will get stored in the memory and displayed here on the right hand side. And yes, and below it, this is the 4th area. Here basically, if we are creating some graphs, so let me just see if I can quickly show you. So if we are creating graphs, and yes, so here I think I'll be able to create a graph. So those will be visible here on the 4th part. Okay, this is basically saving into a file. Okay, so the fourth section is where basically we can create some graphs or something. Okay, fine. So that we can see later. So here outputs will be displayed which are in the form of some graphical format. Okay, and
Okay.
yes, and other options are given, like if we want to browse some files, so we can browse files from here. If we want to install some packages, so we can click on the packages and we can install the packages from here. And we can read out the documentation of R and RStudio. And then we have viewer. Here also the outputs, like whatever graphical outputs are there, they will either come into viewer or they will come into plots. So this is the
Okay.
fourth window. Yes, so I will tell you in detail about this later on. Yeah. So this was I just gave you an intro basically to programming languages and just took you through functional programming languages, which is the primary domain of R, and just we went through this particular software. Fine.
Okay.
Yeah, if you have any specific queries, you can ask me, because I'll have to go for the another session.
Yeah, I won't take much of it. I just want to know two things. What is the how much time do you think I'll need to learn our program? So I don't want to get in too much of details. I just want to know the introduction part. Secondly, do you know SPSS language as well?
Yeah, SPSS I know. Yeah, that is. I don't take trainings on it, but I know. If you want, I can give you an introductory level knowledge to you.
Correct.
Yes. So that I can. That's a basically tool again for statistical analysis. So I can help you with that as well. Yes.
Okay, and how much time do you think I'll need to learn the R language? Just the introductory part.
R basically the course which we propose, it is of 35 hours. It is of 35 hours, this course. But if you want little less than that, then basically I believe at least 20 hours should be given to it in order to at least get a grip. I'll not say grip of it, because programming is something which is comes from practice. So but at least to get good acquaintance with it, at least 20 hours should be given.
Okay, so basically you're saying almost like 2 weeks time you'll be teaching me this?
Yes.
1 to 2 weeks, you can say.
Yes, correct, right.
Okay, and also what else was I asking? What type of laptop should I? Is it compatible for running these programs? What would you suggest?
Yeah, 64-bit. It should be 64-bit, and minimum 4 GB. Recommended is 8 GB or more. Minimum 4 GB. And yes, so 64-bit. Any like if you are using Windows, that is fine. If you are using any other operating system, that is also fine, because we get this thing. We get software for all the OS operating systems.
Okay. Perfect. Okay, thank you so much, Kushal, for your time and for explaining me.
If you liked our video and would like to recommend it to your friends, please like, share and subscribe to Indeed Inspiring Infotech. We would also love to hear your suggestions and feedback in the comment section below.